Okay, this is called the Sequence of Returns Calculator, and I use this on every first interview and many times on follow-up appointments just as a reminder. It can serve a variety of functions, and I'm going to highlight as many as I can in this video, and I'll be using my cursor as a pointer in this demonstration. Now, this spreadsheet shows the historical returns of the S&P 500 index going back to 1999, so we have the last 18 years worth of market performance. Now, even though most people have heard of the S&P 500, I don't take for granted that my prospect knows what it is. So I basically tell them that it's one of the major stock indexes like the Dow or the NASDAQ, and it represents all market sectors, and those 500 companies represent about 75% of all the money in the market. So it's a pretty good indicator of how the market is doing, the economy, and their mutual funds or 401ks. And I also point out that most money managers, mutual fund managers, use the S&P 500 as a benchmark, and all they're trying to do is beat this index, which some years they can do it, most years they don't, which is why Warren Buffett suggests that for the individual investor, they're better off eliminating their money manager because they'll save the fees and just buy index funds, because over time it's been proven that money managers can't outperform it. Now, by default, the program uses $100,000 as an initial balance. You can actually change that to whatever you like. So if you're dealing with a high net worth prospect, for example, you could change it to $1 million. Just hit the tab button, all the numbers will change. Or if you're dealing with a specific account value that you want to demonstrate, you can put that in there as well. I just normally use $100,000 because it's a nice round figure, and especially on initial appointments without knowing exactly how much my prospect is worth, because all I'm really trying to do here is demonstrate a concept. And when you're looking at these annual returns, one thing you can talk about if you like is the lost decade. You can show them that there are times over a 10-year period where your account value goes up and then it goes down and back up, and then 10 years later you have approximately the same amount of money. But the main function of this for me, however, is to show my prospect how important it is to protect yourself on the downside, especially in retirement when you're taking income, and also how to overcome withdrawal rate risk, longevity risk, the risk of outliving your money in retirement. Now, the first thing I like to do is point out the average rate of return over this 18-year period of 4.17%. That's a little surprising to most people, but it's the reality. Now, obviously, we're kind of cherry picking here because this period of time shows two down markets. But I always ask my client or prospect, isn't it fair to say that within the next 20 years, we could possibly have another couple of down markets, especially considering how high the market is right now? And of course, they always say yes. So going back to 1999, if you had $100,000 in the market was up that year 19.5%, so it would have grown to $119,000. And then, of course, the dot-com bubble burst, 9/11 happened, and then over the next 3-year period, the market dropped over 46%. So their values would have went down to $71,000. And then that year, the market came back up 26%. And this is a point in time I'd like to point out that this is just a recovery gain. It's not a true gain because you're coming off a 46% loss, so you're not getting ahead, just trying to dig yourself out of a hole. But eventually you would have made the money back. The housing market was going really well. And then, of course, we all know what happened in 2008 with the subprime mortgage crisis, and the market dropped by about another 40%, but it did so in a very short period of time. And then, ever since then, we have made a strong comeback. And today, if you would have not pulled any money out of your account, your money would have more than doubled. Now, oftentimes I'll ask my prospect how they were affected by these downturns in the market. If they had money in the market then, did they sustain any losses? If so, how did it make them feel? Did they make any plans in the future to prevent it from happening again? And more importantly, how would they feel if it happened again, considering how high the market is, generally speaking, right now? Okay, let's look back and say that, for example, you retired in 1999, and at that time you needed to start pulling money out to supplement your retirement income, and you decided to take $5,000 a year, or 5%. Now you can put whatever percentage in here that you like. I like to illustrate 5% withdrawals. So you can see, year by year, pulling out $5,000 with the ups and the downs of the market over the past 18 years, You would have pulled out $95,000 and you'd have approximately $30,000 remaining. So from this point forward, if you had no more gains or losses, you'd have about 6 years left worth of income before you'd be out of money or out of income in retirement. So at this point, I usually like to talk to my prospect about withdrawal rate risk. And this is a perfect example of why the financial world recommends you don't withdraw 5% from your retirement account. Because of longevity, people are living longer, and market volatility, you got a higher probability of running out of money in retirement. And depending upon what you read, that number is anywhere from 1.8 to 2% as far as the recommended withdrawal rate. So why do I show 5%? Well, because we can get them close to 5% and sometimes even higher depending upon their age if they use the right strategy. And that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, now I'm going to go up and I'm going to click on the reset button, and it's going to take me back to where we started. And at this point, a lot of times I'll ask my prospect what they think is most important, maximizing their gains or protecting themselves from losses. And regardless of what answer they give me, what I'm trying to do here is show them exactly how important, how critical it is to eliminate your losses in retirement. We still want their money to grow, but we want to focus more on protecting what they've got. And that there is a strategy in our industry that allows you to do that, to where you make an interest rate based on the upside of the market, but you're protected on the downside from any losses. I don't talk about annuities. I don't talk about any specific product, even though this tab here says fixed index annuity. But I'm going to click on this, and I'm just going to purely talk about the strategy and conceptually how it works. We're not trying to hide the fact that this is a fixed index annuity, and we're going to talk about annuities, but that's going to be a little bit later. We just want to keep it purely based on concept right now. So I tell my prospect that the way this strategy works is when the market index goes up, you're going to make gains based on the market going up. When the market index goes down, you're not going to have any losses. Now, by default, the percentage of gains captured is 50%. You can change this if you like. I always leave it at 50% for a couple of reasons. As you know, there are some participation rate products right now that are paying close to 50%. And I've had years where my clients have actually made higher than 50%, depending upon what crediting strategy they were in, and some years where they made less than 50%. So I think it all kind of balances out, and I think it's fair to say that 50% is realistic that our clients can make. So when the market goes up, for example, like it did in 1999, I tell my client, market was up 19.5%, you make half of that, you make 9.8% return. The next 3 years, when the market dropped by over 46%, over here with this strategy, you didn't lose any money. You didn't make any money, but you didn't lose any money, and that's really what's important. When the market started to recover back in 2003 and it was up 26%, over here, you're only making half of that return, but you're making that on all the money you ever had plus all the interest you've ever made. I'd rather make a 13% return on 109,000 than a 26% return on 71. As you can see, higher account value. Same thing in 2008 when the market dropped by almost 40%. Over here in this strategy, clients didn't lose any money, no losses. Why? Because the money's not invested directly in the market. We're just using the market to make gains. I also like to point out that these gains are credited as interest. It's paid as an interest rate. It's not a share value, which means that these gains are locked in. They're realized gains. Whereas on this side, these are purely paper gains. The values of your account go up and they go down based on the ups and downs of the market. Whereas here, we have gains that are locked in every single year. You don't have to make a decision whether or not to sell in order to create a realized gain. At the end of this period of time, this 18 years, as you can see, what we have here is a higher rate of return, more money in your account, and the only difference is you're getting half of the upside, but you're getting none of the downside. Now, here's what makes this strategy and the concept of eliminating your losses even more powerful, and that's when you want to create income. At some point, most people are going to use their retirement accounts to create income, whether that's taking money out as needed, the required distributions, or systematic income they take every year, every month. What we don't know is, will the market be up or will it be down when we decide to pull money out or when we need to pull money out? So I'm going to hit the reset button again, and I'm going to illustrate, like I did before, taking 5% withdrawals. And as you can see, based on the ups and downs of the market the last 18 years, there's a trend, there's a risk here of running out of money. I'm down to $30,000. I'm going to go back and I'm going to click the Fixed Index Annuity tab, and I'm going to illustrate that taking the same withdrawals over the same period of time, me making half of the upside and none of the downside, I've eliminated all my market risk. At the end of the day, I pulled out the same amount of money, $95,000 over 18 years, and I still have over 93% of my original investment. I've got $93,000 in my account versus $30,000 over here, simply by eliminating my losses, and I'm only getting half of the gains. Now at this point, I'd like to talk to my prospect about the sequence of returns risk, something that they probably have never heard of before. And it's basically that when you're pulling money out as income in retirement, it's not necessarily whether you make a gain or a loss, because that's one thing we can always count on. The market's going to go up or it's going to go down. We just don't know when it's going to go up and when it's going to go down. So in other words, we don't know when we're going to experience the gain and when we're going to experience the loss. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this random tab right here, and it's going to take the returns of the S&P 500 index over the past 18 years, and it's going to rearrange the order of the return. In other words, when we experience the loss and the gain is going to be scrambled. So as you can see what the year was in the return in that year, but it's just in a different order. And it's doing this on both sides. And as you can see on this column here, it's even worse than the last 18 years, is I'm down to about 24,000, whereas over on this side, I still have about 80,000 in my account. Every time I hit the random button, it's going to give me a different result. Now, in most cases, the right-hand column will show a higher value than the left. Now, in this particular case, it did not, and that's because we experienced a lot of gains in the first handful of years. I don't know how likely this is considering where the market is right now, but most of the time when we hit the random button, you'll see that the right-hand column outperforms the left-hand column simply by eliminating all of my losses, and I'm only getting half the gains. If I click on this random button enough times, it will actually show me a scenario where on the left side we run out of money even sooner. And because it's a computer program that's completely random, sometimes it takes a little while for that to be displayed. So bear with me. Okay, so here's an example where after about 16 years, we've run out of money completely. And of course, that's experiencing some significant losses early on. And again, you got to ask your prospect, how likely is this to happen? Is this a possibility considering how high the market is right now? And of course, on the right-hand column, you can see I run out of money after about 16 years, where over here, I still have about 89,000, 85,000 left in my account. And I'll ask my prospect, if you're looking at these two columns and this were your retirement money, which one of these strategies would you feel the most comfortable with? So I have found this to be a very effective tool on how to display how I can help my clients achieve an attractive rate of return while eliminating their market risk, but more importantly, how they can receive a higher income stream in retirement. In most cases, more than double the 2% recommended withdrawal rate standard of today, simply by utilizing a strategy that's designed to produce income, and that income is guaranteed for life. There's one more situation I'll use this calculator for, and I don't know if this has happened to anyone else out there, but sometimes when I've run an insurance company's income illustration for a prospect, they've told me that it just sounds too good to be true, and they can't understand how the insurance company can provide them an income for as long as they live. And so what I'll do is I'll refer back to this calculator and I'll show them that right-hand column and remind them that once you take the risk of loss completely out of the equation, you've dramatically reduced your chance of running out of money. Technically, it could still happen if they live long enough, but the insurance company is willing to take on their longevity risk because that's their business. They're masters at managing that risk. And there will be some people that will outlive their money, but they'll still have an income for life. And there'll be the majority of people that will not. And the insurance company is willing to take on that risk because that's their business. So thanks for watching. I hope this video has been helpful.